Hello and welcome back to the local food co-op's training course called Content in Hand, Getting the Best Rich Media from Your Mobile Devices. I'm your host, Wayne MacPhail, and this time we're jumping into part 5, which is post-production and editing tools. And editing tools are really important to get the best image once you've taken the picture. Now, as we've talked about before, it's important to try to get the very best image and the very best cropping you can right in the field, because you want to do that because it makes the best use of all the pixels in the image, and it's just good practice to get your exposure right and your composition right. But sometimes you want to enhance an image or make an image look more like what you saw in the field, and that's where post-production comes in. There are a variety of tools that allow you to do things like this. Here is a photograph that I took recently of Coops Paradise in Hamilton. Here I've increased the saturation, I've darkened the foreground, and just tried to make the photograph look more like what I actually saw when I took it. Here's another example. This is a shot in Union Station, near Union Station, and it was okay, but I wanted to, again, try to make it look more like what I saw, because your eyes are pretty remarkable cameras in and of themselves. So here's what the image looks like after I did some post-production on it. So let's take a look at them side by side. You'll notice that down here in the lower right, you'll see that I opened up the shadows to show the embrace of the young people. I changed the color hue here on the building and made it a little richer, increased the contrast. And here you notice that the sky is a little bluer. So how did I do those things? Well, I used post-production tools, and there are a variety of them available on the Android side and on the iOS side, on the the iPhone side. So you can use the basic photo tool on the iPhone and in Android to adjust saturation, exposure, contrast, and other things. Or you can use apps like Camera Plus or Camera Awesome or Lightroom or Pixelmator or Snapseed, and you're looking at Pixelmator over there on the right-hand side. Today we're going to focus on Snapseed, and Snapseed is a free tool that's available both on the Android platform and on the iPhone platform or the iOS platform. Very, very powerful tool. It's the one I use on the phone almost all the time to do post-production on my images, and let's take a look at what that can do. This is an example of post-processing on the iPhone. This is an iPhone, and I'm using an app, a free app called Snapseed. Here's a picture that I took recently at Union Station in Toronto. It's an okay picture, but there's some work that needs to be done on this, or at least work that we can do on this in Snapseed. So let me show you how it works. I'm just hitting the little pencil there in the bottom right-hand corner. And that brings up a number of tools that I can use to work on this image. So the first one I'm going to use is crop, and I'm just going to touch on the crop icon there. And you'll notice that I have a variety of choices here at the bottom. I could just edit it in any direction, so I could just move this around any way I want, and I'm cropping here. Or I can choose the original image or original size, so it keeps the proportion or the ratio of horizontal to vertical the same. So if I click on that one and I move this, you'll notice that it moves both the horizontal and the vertical there. Or I can choose any number of other formats that I want. So right now I'm just going to choose the original, which I just chose in there, so that's in blue. And I'm going to come back here, and the reason that I did that is you'll notice on the right side near the bottom there is a purse just below the S in station. So I'm just going to come in a little bit there. And I did this as an example because you want to generally sort of frame your shot so you don't have those extraneous details. I picked this one because there actually was extraneous detail, and this shows you how to get rid of it. So if I hit the check mark down in the bottom right-hand corner there, that will allow me to see what the image looks like with that change in place. Now the other thing you might notice is that just below the Union Station with the shadow, and then below that there's the edge where the curb starts, and it's a little bit crooked, so I can actually go in here and hit rotate, and now it gives me the ability to actually rotate the image. And I'm just going to make sure there that curb is just about straight. There we go, and I can confirm that. And now I've got the image sort of the way I want it. And it's difficult to get exactly the straight line. I could have gone under the Union Station. Let's actually do that. I'm going to go back into Rotate, and this time I'm going to work on getting the Union just about straight there. It's a little tricky on an iPhone, but once you get the hang of it, it's good. And so I'm going to say OK there. So I can also do other things to the image. I'm just going into the Tune Image tool. And this is a very powerful one. So I can adjust brightness, contrast, saturation, ambience, highlight, shadows, and other things here. And you notice they're all set to 0 because I haven't done anything yet. And you'll also notice another thing that's very valuable. You'll notice down in the lower left-hand corner a thing called a histogram. And the histogram is really a range of tonality. So what you're seeing on the left-hand side is starting with the darkest part of the image up to the lightest part on the right-hand side. And you'll see that there's not much information in the lower left there. That's the darkest part. And it suggests that there's not really much of a true black there. And then you'll notice on the other side, on the right-hand side, in that little space to the right there, you're not seeing a whole bunch of information. Again, it's suggesting that there's not a real white. And very often, not always, very often in images you want to have that full range of the black without blocking up your shadows and the highlights without blowing out your highlights. So one of the things I'm going to do here is I'm going to adjust the contrast. So now I've selected contrast, and I can slide left and right on the image, and that's what I'm doing right now, to adjust the contrast of the image. So you can see it's getting more contrasty, it's getting less contrast. It may be a little difficult to see in the slide, but what you do notice is the histogram down in the bottom there is changing. And it's changing because the contrast is spreading the histogram left and right so that you get more brighter whites and darker darks. So I'm just going to expand that out a little bit more there. So I haven't blown out any highlights. Now I'm going to go back in and scroll up and down and hit saturation. Saturation improves the color of the images. It sort of enriches the color. So I'm just going to slide again left and right here, and I'm increasing the saturation. Now you see it's getting, the colors are getting a little richer. I could make it ridiculously rich. I don't want to do that, but I just do want to increase them. It was shot early in the morning, and I really like that light. And what I saw really in the original view was this kind of nice reddish glow, right? So I can do that. I can do a lot of other things. I can add what's called a vignette. I'm just going to say I like that. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to tap on vignette. That's at the bottom left there. So if I tap on vignette, what this allows me to do is pick a point here, which I'm moving around. You can't see it right now because I'm moving it, but it allows me, you'll notice that the edges are a little darker. And let me just sort of increase that so you can really see a ridiculous degree. But if I just bring it back just a little bit, you can see, watch the edges, it's just getting a little bit darker there. And that draws attention to the center. And very often it's useful to use vignette just to do that. It just sort of pays, it draws attention to it. And I can move the highlight around so that it will highlight different things in the image. I don't have to have it in the center there. Now I'm sort of exaggerating some of this stuff just so you can see what happens here. One of the other things I can do in Snapseed is do selective manipulation, and this is a very, very powerful tool. So if I have, you notice I've got that blue cross there. If I tap on, I'm just tapping on the sky there, and you'll notice there's a bee, and I can select, this is going to adjust brightness. I could also adjust contrast and saturation. The difference here is I can actually control, and I'm just pinching in and out with 2 fingers, control what part of the image gets that. So I'm actually going to go into saturation here because it's easiest to see, and I'm going to increase the saturation of the blue sky. And you can see it's getting more blue, and now I'm going to take it away. You see it's almost black and white there. I'm going to increase the saturation, so that gives me a little bit more blue in the sky. Now if I wanted to add another one, another selection, I can hit the plus sign again, which I just did, and then I'm tapping there. You'll see another bee there, and I'm going to adjust I'm just going to pick a better spot there, right there, and here I'm going to adjust the brightness. So I'm just going to bring, you can see the brightness coming down there. There it goes. So I'm just going to bring that down just a little bit. And again, these are things that are minor changes. I'm exaggerating them a bit here again to show you, but they just make the photograph a little better. Now, the main center of focus here should be Union. So you'll notice the upper right, the Royal York there is a little bit bright. So again, I'm going to take a point, put it there on the Royal York. I'm going to select the Royal York just by pinching in there. And again, I'm going to decrease the brightness there. So it just, you don't want to do it too much, just a little bit there. So now I've focused the attention on the Union there. There's a couple of other really powerful things you can do with Snapseed. So for example, I'm just going to pick another tool called Healing. And I've just select Healing. And what does Healing do? It helps you remove some extraneous details. So I'm just going to zoom in here. And you'll notice that there's that sort of squiggly line off the shadow. And I can just sort of mark it with the Healing tool, and it's gone. And again, there's a little bit of dirt there on the wall just up above the shadow head there, and I'm just going to select that, and it disappears. So very powerful. I can select that. So now I've kind of cleaned up the image really, really nicely. I could do more of that kind of work. I don't need to, I don't think. That's just an example of the kinds of things that you can do in Snapseed that will allow you to improve the images that you've already taken a picture of. So that's a little bit of an overview of how you can use post-production, particularly in this case in Snapseed, to give you, just boost up your images a little bit. And I encourage you to do post-production on almost any image you shoot. It's going to make it better for you, whether it's the photo tool that comes with the iPhone or a proprietary tool like Snapseed that makes it really easy to enhance your image. So I hope that was helpful. That was part 5. Coming up in part 6, we're going to shift over and look at video. And a lot of what we've learned in parts 1 to part 5 are really going to apply here. But there's some special things that we need to know about video. First off, we're going to be looking at some practical tips, much like we did in part 2 of this training course, looking at simple practical tools for photography. Now we're going to look at them for video coming up. Hope you can join me. Hope this module was helpful to you. I'm Wayne MacPhail. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.